everybody, and welcome back to the Manufacturing Summit. So this is our fourth session of the day, and so far today we've been talking about what's happening in reality. We've been hearing about return on investment, we've been talking about deployment experiences, we've been seeing use cases and case studies, and we've been hearing about the power of partnerships and the impact of the ecosystem. And for this session, we're still going to be anchored in the reality of digital reality and digital twins, and we're also going to be looking at where that's going to take us in terms of the industrial metaverse. So in terms of our speakers today, we're going to have a presentation from Nvidia and then from Singtel, and then we're going to be joined on stage by a panel of experts to share their thoughts and experiences with us. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome onto the stage, first of all, Kreß Penrose from Nvidia. Thanks, Kreß.
Thank you very much. How's everybody doing today? Good? All right, it's good to be with you. Yeah, so Kreß Penrose, I'm the global head of business development for Nvidia for Telco, but obviously manufacturing is one of the key verticals that people are really targeting when they're talking about what's happening with regard to digital twins and the metaverse. And so I'm going to walk you guys through what Nvidia is really doing in this space. We'll talk a little bit about how we really view the metaverse and really what are the key applications that you need in order to be able to make this turn into a reality. And then I'm going to show you some of the actual use cases that are being put out in manufacturing today, and then we'll wrap up with kind of some next steps. So with this, manufacturing in the industrial metaverse, you know, one of the things people always say, well, you know, metaverse is a very overused term. We kind of define it at Nvidia as really the 3D version of the internet, right? And right now, this is really beginning to take shape in many different industries, but it's one of the things you're really seeing a lot happen here is how can we create exact replicas of the physical world in the virtual world, and we're doing that through digital twins. And so we've got a platform that's called Nvidia Omniverse, and this is really a platform to allow for the creation of these digital worlds. So let me show you kind of a little bit about what we're doing here. With this, you've got the ability to actually bring all of your data into one single ground truth that is 100% photorealistic, 100% accurate representation of the real world, okay, in the virtual world. And this is why when Nvidia talks about digital twins, there's always a gaming and kind of a metaverse, you know, side of that, but this is really about how can businesses run their business differently, and in order to do it, it has to be 100% accurate, right? So we as a gaming company in our background, in our lineage, we can bring all this amazing graphics and photorealism into the digital twin world. So when you're looking at these digital twins, you're seeing exact replicas of what's happening, you know, in the real world. And now you're also able to take in all sorts of data sets and be able to push that information in to have a complete representation. So what you're going to see in this next little short video here is an example across many different industries about how these digital twins and how Omniverse is enabling this new, you know, virtual reality. So let's go ahead and run this video here. So pretty cool, right? And this is really, and all that you saw there, those are all real use cases. They're all out there being worked on with those companies you saw there. And what I like is that little tagline of kind of design, build, and operate. And why I think it's important is that a lot of people talk about digital twins and the ability to, to maybe simulate things that might happen, but I think it gives you, as a manufacturer, it really gives you kind of multiple superpowers. One is to kind of teleport yourself. You can go factory to factory. You can go all over the world. You can dive into specific places and specific applications and look, in ways to inspect your business in ways you've never been able to do before. We talk about the ability to kind of look forward in time and predict things for the future, so you can do things to be able to simulate, okay, if I do this, what would happen? But once you build a digital twin, you also have the ability to go back in time and be able to review why did something happen and how could I avoid that from happening in the future, which I think is really a powerful way to look at it. And then obviously explore all these different alternative ways that you can move your business forward. So to me, this is really this kind of amazing way to have this whole new way to really look at your business, design your business, plan your business, and operate your business. So let's talk about some of those examples you saw up on the screen. Here's a good one with Volvo. So Volvo is actually using Omniverse in their research and development. And if you kind of think about the history of car making, there was a lot of modeling of cars, right, with clay, right? this was kind of the way it really was done. And so, but if you really think about the idea that if I'm creating a complete, exact replica of the car and every system in the car, then I don't need to do that anymore. I can do it all in one place and be able to collaborate in real time across all those different systems. And so Volvo is a great example of somebody that's been leaning in and seeing the power of being able to bring all those different systems together, because if you can collaborate across all those different teams versus every team working in a different area and bring that all into one place as a single source of truth, it can massively accelerate your ability to get that product into the marketplace. On a totally different kind of, the type of manufacturing in the bicycle world, a company called Predator Bicycles. They actually was very interesting. They were using this as part of their design process to also be able to expose this out to their end customers and be able to get feedback from their customers about the types of things that they were looking about. So color choices and different things like that, as well as doing real-time simulation of the airflow going over the bicycle. So as they were actually tweaking these changes on how aerodynamic the bike was, they were actually exposing that type of information out to their end customers as part of their marketing collateral to say, this is why we are really better than anybody else in the bicycle industry. So really interesting use case where they're using it not only internally for collaboration, but also externally with their customers so they can see what's being done in the design process around bicycles. BMW, probably one of our largest installations from Nvidia. This is complete factory of the future. BMW has built ground up their entire factory and every single piece part that goes into that factory. So if you think about an engine and all the different piece parts in the engine down to each individual screw is all being represented here inside of Omniverse. And also the entire flow of how people operate inside that factory is also being represented in Omniverse. So from a safety perspective, we can actually do simulations to say if a cart is at a certain height, is that the best way versus me having to bend over to get something off, and we can actually adjust, and bring, simulations through to make sure that every worker is in the most, beneficial way for them to do their work in the safest way. So this is a really incredible work that's been done at BMW, and all their new factories, whenever they're going out to do new factories, they're designing it all in Omniverse, all digitally first, making sure they have it right before they go into actual production in the factory. Another one, Amazon. Amazon does, obviously, they've got 200 fulfillment centers around the world. They've got tens of millions of packages. And everything they do inside these fulfillment centers is all being done first inside of Omniverse in a digital twin. They're literally, all the robots that are running around inside those facilities are all being pathed inside the facilities to make sure that it's both safe and you can get the most packages out the door per day. And what's truly incredible here is, every single night they're actually restaging the entire fulfillment center based upon the consumer data about what they bought the previous day. and so, but they're also able to run these incredible simulations. So they, ironically, they actually made a change on some of their packing tape one time, and the robots didn't quite know what to do because they'd never seen that color before. And so we were able to then go through, and using a digital twin, we were able to go through and train all the different package types using the new packaging, so that the robots would actually know what to do with that packaging, and then get everything back online in a much more rapid time frame. So that's a great example of kind of changing the process and using the twin, to actually fix things, that might have gone awry. Pepsi, another great example, inside their facilities, they billion Pepsi products consumed each and every day, and how can they actually use video inspection on the manufacturing lines to be able to look at what's coming down the line, be able to take action in real time. So now you're actually seeing the feeding of the sensor data around, in this case, video analytics up into a digital twin, to be able to then also be able to visualize that on a dashboard, and be able to take action whenever we're seeing anything that's going wrong, to make sure that we're getting as many things through those facilities as possible. So again, I think these are all really powerful examples of real work that's happening out there, in the manufacturing world. And so I kind of leave you, with these kind of, key things of what we're seeing about the benefits. First and foremost, it's really about this ability to collaborate in a 3D world. There's a lot of 3D tools out there, and NVIDIA didn't go out to set out to replace those tools. What actually NVIDIA is trying to do is actually enable all those different tools to be able to talk in one place. And so you can use your favorite design tools. You can use CAD. You can use you can use Unreal Engine. You can use all these different tools that are out there. But for the first time, everyone working on those individual tools can also see their work happening in one place together, and they can be collaborating in real time. So that's one big thing. The full fidelity concept. Again, the fact that this has to be 100% physically accurate, because if it's not 100% accurate in the digital world, it's not going to be accurate in the real world. And a great example of this is kind of in this next page, which is like the test without producing. This ability to actually create a bunch of different digital variants before you actually go into production is really, really beneficial. And the ability to also simulate these different scenarios before you actually go down a path of something that might not be perfect. That's the real power of actually having these things completely digitized. And then obviously it reduces waste. I mean, you eliminate so much of the going back and forth. When you actually have one place where you can go and see a completely 100% accurate representation, you can get approvals through significantly faster and get your products to market significantly quicker. So these are some of the big benefits that we're seeing out here at NVIDIA of why the adoption is taking place, and how manufacturers are really transforming the way that they're operating. And so we're very excited to be part of this journey. It is truly something where we believe that this is the superpower of the future for manufacturers to really continue to transform what they're doing and offer the best products and services to their end customers. So with that, I think that wraps me up for today. But thank you guys very, very much for allowing me to be here, and have a great rest of the show.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris. So many fabulous examples and benefits, so thank you for that. Okay, so without further ado, to move us along, please welcome to the stage Dennis Wong from Singtel, who's going to share his experiences with you.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope you have a good first day in MWC. I'm Dennis. I'm from Singtel. Singtel is from Singapore, a small city-state, a very small city-state. So probably you don't associate it with kind of large manufacturing, kind of industries, etc., etc. But one thing good about Singapore and Singtel is that Singapore itself, while it's very small, is actually very developed. So for us in Singapore, the manufacturing plants are usually very, very advanced. All right, for us, I think recently for Singtel, we have actually kind of like built a 5G private network for a company that is doing EVs manufacturing. So we also done quite a fair bit of 5G installation for some places, like for example, microns, and there's what you call the semiconductors as well. So without further ado, I'm going to share with you a little bit of experience, and that's a little bit different from what Chris has shared. I'm going to share a little bit more about that as an enabler, network provider, as a solution provider. What is the difficulties that we see with our manufacturers, with our so-called customers and our client. Probably follow me through with some of my slides. There are quite a fair bit of them. I'm not going to go through every one of them, but if there's anything that you might want to ask, you can always catch me after this. First and foremost, things that you guys all know. There are more devices than human now, right? And the problem is, the more devices it is, it's not just about sheer number. It's about the different attributes and the different requirement. You can see that the kind of business enabler, the kind of interfaces that people are needing, the kind of productivity things that we are needing, all these technologies need more bandwidth, need more speed, lower latency, more compute. It all makes it sounds very confusing and very complex. So as you can imagine, for anything that in a very advanced manufacturing, these are the things that will be needed. And of course, GSMA, and all the operators come up with 5G. So for 5G, we say that you have EMBBs, you have URLCC, you have MMTCs, all right? So from an industrial 4.0 perspective, is this going to work? You will see that we have things like, with our high enhanced mobile broadband, you have gigabyte downloads. Now you can download a movie that you can bring on your plane to watch in probably a few minutes, right? In the past, remember good old days, I'm not so sure how many of you is as old as me. I was the time using baud rate 9,600 US robotics. You remember those you dial up, they go, and then after that, you hope that nobody dials in. If somebody dials in, the lines drop, and you got to probably wait for a few days to download some stuff, right? Things have moved a long way. Then of course, ultra-low latency connectivities. And that will bring about your AR and XR. In the past, without low latency, everyone uses the AR videos. You remember that if you move your head too fast, you get giddy. So these are things that actually brings about a different experience. And of course, we are talking about autonomous vehicles, not the one that Tesla is having, but what we call fully collaborated autonomous vehicles. That will come in the future. On the other hand, where most of the industrial sensors, where all the residential sensors are, the smart cities, that's where your MMTC come into play. So taking this into place and say that, how do I use 5G for my industrial partners in Singapore? So I'm just share a little bit of things with you. You can see it change. One of the customers that we work with is actually what we call a kind of like a R&D center. It's helping all the manufacturing plants to apply new technologies. So when we bring them 5G, the first thing they use for the gigabit download was actually what they use as what we call edge caching. The amount of machines and the amount of data, the documents that you have in the factory, in the day, when you start the day, can you imagine everyone comes in, everyone just switch it on? Then you have all the firmware all crashing. You're going to put it from the cloud, it's going to be a problem. So edge caching become one very good use case. Then of course, you have things like remote assistance. You have things like, for example, what we call the security, and especially the things like AGVs, all right? The EV factories they're working on, they are using AGVs, using 5G on the AGVs. So unlike the normal automotive kind of like a manufacturing plant, instead of conveyor belt, the AGVs is actually bringing the body parts of the cars to the different station. Why? The reason is because all of us are now getting used to customization. You want your car to be this color. You want your car to have these seats. I don't want to have a red leather seats. I want to have a black steering wheels. So these things all are part of the customization that we need. And in fact, I think some of you knows that in Nike, you can go on a Nike website and you can buy shoes. And you can buy a Nike by you. You can choose your shoelace, you can choose your sole, the colors of sole and color of your pattern. But do you realize one thing? They can actually deliver to you the same shoe at the same time if you choose a one that is actually off the shelf. So that is a power of customization, and manufacturings are actually having that. So all this is part of Industrial 4.0. But the question is that Industrial 4.0, as I mentioned, is not just 5G. You need compute, you need AI, you need assurance, you need a whole bunch of these things. And you realize that in order for them to work in a very seamless way, you have just-in-time manufacturing, you have real-time working capital, so you have constantly evolving supply chain. Tomorrow, there's one partner that's having a supply chain problem. How do you quickly switch to the other one? And you have things like, for example, all the AI and MLs. You know, we are working with Nvidia as well. So how do we put all these things in place? Now, With this, we realize that manufacturing do not just need network. They need a whole bunch of things at the bottom. They need networks, they need your edge and your public cloud, they need a closed-loop operating system with assurance monitoring, they need your AI, your GPUs, all your securities, and then your ecosystems. The OT guys and the IT guys, they all have different needs. Just imagine that today you're going to put another few more cameras in the factories, and you need to have more bandwidth. What will happen? You'll probably call the guys in the network teams, can you please call the operator and just get me some more bandwidth? And then at the same time say, but if you have more bandwidth, I need more compute. Then you get the infra guys to get more compute. So what happens is that it takes time to build. So we were thinking that how do we actually help manufacturers and help operators to look at things differently? So before I go to the platform, I will just also say that different use cases actually have different needs. I think this kind of slides, I think you guys see more than enough. But actually in a factory, you also realize that the factories actually for the bandwidth, they need a lot of different slices. All right? Some of the kinds are like sliced by usage pattern. And you have sliced by device priorities. You will always give security or the kind of like what we call high-speed precision manufacturing, the highest speed, highest priorities. You also have slides that you will use it during the time that you have least what we call consumption. For example, you can always control your 5G in your factory to be given more bandwidth to internet when the staff is off work. But during working time, you will consume, you can control the amount of traffic, the kind of like a bandwidth for your 5G to be for the manufacturing. Now, all this slicing, all these controls actually means that the factories need to have very good control over their operations, over the networks, over their compute. And for Singapore, for Singtel, we actually built this platform called Paragon, all right? It gives you the visibility and the management, it gives you the performance assurance and the risk management mitigation as well. It has the manufacturing, the management and the ops portal, or we call it basically the SSO, right? Single sign-on. We have the marketplace, which is the ecosystem, with the service orchestration, the APIs, and the cloud management services itself. Basically, it combines your network as a service, the QoS, the slicing. It combines your MEC, and it combines your cloud management all into the same place. Now, the MEC comprises of all the products that you know out there. AWS Outpost, AWS Wavelength, Azure Edge Zone, and today we just announced Azure Edge Zone private preview with Singtel, first out of US. And so we also have, it's connected to your public cloud as well. So in a single console, you can see quite a fair bit of what we call the control and aggregation. I'm not going to go through this, but this is basically some of the features that you have that from a Paragon perspective. Now, we're just going to touch base a little bit about one of the things that we have been doing with our, what we call our customer on Metaverse, right? This customer is actually doing a factory. They call it the Meta Factories. Now, one of the things that we shared with them is that how does things change in the past, right? We have first, in the last 7 years, you have all the physical stuff. You remember you play game with the console, you go to old games. Then after that, you went to the cloud-based. Then you go to VR. Eventually, you will go to the Metaverse. Similarly, your workplace. One thing I want to share about the workplace is that your digital twins. Your digital twins is allowing you to visualize. For you, as what Kreß has mentioned, to see the past simulation and back to see the past. However, Metaverse is more than that. Metaverse is actually a combination of summation of your digital twins. You can look at it, your infra, that's your roads. You talk about your plant, that's where all your physical facilities are, and then all your machines. All these actually form a bigger metaverse than you can think of. Just a manufacturing, you do not just want to look at the machine whether it's working or not working. You're not worrying about the plant, if the plant got enough supply or not. But you also want to think about the logistic. You're talking about the infrastructure as well. So that is where I think it will all come together. Now, all this is not going to come together by a single provider. It comes through because all the players in the industries, as well as all the partners or all the ecosystems. So I just want to finish off. I know I'm running out of time. So I'm just going to finish off saying that, digital twins will definitely evolve to industrial metaverse in the next few years. It will have to be enabled by 5G, probably 6Gs as well, edge computing, IoT, and definitely artificial intelligence. Yeah, with that, I conclude my presentation, and thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis, for showing the Singtel view there. Okay, so please can I invite onto the stage Christina Patsioura, who is the moderator for this session, and also please invite up the panel members. So please come and join us on the stage. Christina, over to you.
Not yet. So.
Is that working? Yes, it's working. Hello,
Perfect.
and welcome to our session. So this is going to be about the industrial metaverse with companies who are actually doing it and professionals who have a wealth of experience, not necessarily in the metaverse, because that's a very new topic, but in other technology concepts. And why is that important? Because they have been through hype cycles, frustration cycles, but nevertheless, they are now engaging themselves with something very exciting, very futuristic. So I'd like to ask them to do a quick round of introductions, talk a bit about yourself, what you do. First of all, what's your company, and what got you as your company into the metaverse?
Sure, shall I start? Yeah, thank you for that amazing event. Can you hear me? Better? Yeah, glad to be here with all of you. Great turnout for the session. My name is Yusuf Khalili. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer. I'm the President of Professional Services for Autonomous. Autonomous is the previously known tech and digital arm of NEOM. NEOM is the futuristic trillion-dollar city that's being built in Saudi Arabia, almost the size of Belgium. It's a very ambitious project that is led by His Royal Highness, and it's directly going to impact the future way of how we live, work, and play. And it's starting a model of how cognitive cities can be actually brought together to change the world. And my role in my unit is to imagine, so the previous line, design, build, operate. It's to imagine the art of possible on how humanity can come together to innovate and to impact life and to impact nature. And we go and build those solutions that we imagine from a technology and digital perspective. We deploy them, we operate them, and we measure the impact of those solutions. So that's what we do.
Gerhard.
All right, so my name is Gerhard Kreß. I'm in Siemens responsible for Xcelerator portfolio and digital business. You might not know that, but Siemens is the second biggest European software company. And we have been focusing for pretty much the last decade on bringing together the real and the virtual worlds. And that's exactly what the Metaverse also does. For me, the Metaverse is the combination point where we bring a lot of these different elements that exist today together so that customers can use that. And I think in that discussion, we'll explore how this really creates value and is tangible. And I think it's a great chance for all of us to bring the industrial world a few steps forward.
Jakob?
Yeah, thank you, Christina, for inviting us here on this panel, this great panel with Gerhard and Yusuf as well. My name is Jakob Groote. I'm working for KPN, which is the Dutch telecom operator. Quite a background in a lot of things, but one of my last duties within the company was introducing 5G for KPN, both on the business side as well as on the consumer side. And I think in all these great endeavors that my panel colleagues from the panel are doing, it's very important that we have that connectivity which is provided by a telecom operator also available, because otherwise it's not going to work. It's not only a private network, but it's also extending it to the bigger world. And that's what I'd like to achieve from a functionality point of view, but also in real life point of view. And I think we are already achieving a lot of things, so let's work that out in more detail.
Thanks very much. So to sum up, we have a disruptive innovator tech company. We have probably the leading industrial automation company, Siemens, and we have KPN, the Dutch telecom operator, with us. I forgot to mention, I come from the GSMA. I'm an analyst working with GSMA intelligence. And we're having a lot of conversations with operators. Also, we do a lot of survey work. So there's a question coming from you, for you, Jakob. So in our exchanges, only very few operators see a significant opportunity in the metaverse. But what is very interesting is that when we ask them separately about consumer metaverse and enterprise or industrial metaverse, they are more favorable towards the enterprise or industrial metaverse. How do you comment on that?
Yeah, I can imagine that. But I also always like to bring it back to what's already happening. And if you see how many experiments all operators, including ourselves, are already doing on, for instance, supporting manufacturing processes with all kinds of 3D HoloLens type functionalities, I think we're already close to building part of that metaverse. If we then add the digital twin side, and I think Gerhard will express more about that, etc., we actually bring together the things that Kreß, but also Dennis in the previous presentation said, these are the elements of the metaverse. If you then take a look at the consumer side, I think that that's a little bit further away, maybe a bit difficult to really touch it and grab it, etc. So on the enterprise side, with the things that we're already doing, with the HEVs, with the design work, all the things that we've seen, it's close by, and that makes it very attractive also to make it something where we can earn money with where we can create value, and that's also for an operator very important.
Thanks for this. I have a very quick follow-up question. It's an analyst question. Do you think the industrial metaverse is a 5G or a 6G type of thing? A very quick one.
It's not easy to give a very quick answer to that. I think we sometimes define something as 4 or 5 or 6G, etc., where it's more a gradual scale. So I don't mind whether you call it 5G or 6G. It's really about the functionality they can bring. But please, I hope that everyone remembers from this session that the biggest chunk of the functionality, the biggest chunk of the technology is already available today to help the businesses out. So I don't care whether you call it 6G or 5G.
Thanks for this. I'd like now to move on closer to the end user experience and go to you, Gerhard. So the subject, the person of the industrial metaverse is the worker, is the technician, is the workforce. What is the value for them, and what is changing, and what do you anticipate to change fundamentally at their work on a daily basis?
I think actually it's not just the worker, it's the whole industrial process we have to look at. So we've seen some examples in the presentation before, is when you plan a complete industrial process, you can optimize that before you build something. You can make sure it's safe, you can make sure it's efficient, you can make sure people can do their jobs before you build the machines. You can optimize the processes and then implement this in reality. Then of course, you get, for example, let's say supply chain problems. A certain good is not being delivered. How do you change your production? Do you still run the factory at as high capacity as you can? Again, you simulate that in the metaverse setting. You take decisions together and then you implement it directly into the machines. I've built a similar exercise in the rail space for Siemens the last couple of years. And what we've seen there is that the majority of problems that appear on trains, we can diagnose before the train comes to the depot. We can provide the right spare parts. You have the people, they're on site, on the spots, with the tools, with the spare parts. They can do their job. They can do it very efficiently. They don't need to run around and try to identify something which they could have been resolved prior. So we make sure these people can do their job as good as possible with less input. And I think just as sort of last important statement from me, I think we're in two transformations right now simultaneously. There's a digital transformation that all our customers are going through, but there's also the sustainability transformation. If we want to continue delivering good quality to our people, we need to do more with less. That's the only way this can be done is by leveraging digital technologies, by making sure we work as efficient as we can. Otherwise, we will have complete other set of problems very soon. So I think it's more than just the worker. But for the worker, things get safer, better, they get better equipped, and they get access to a lot more information and can do their job better.
And this is already happening?
This is already happening, and I mean, we had a discussion before here. Of course, you don't have the complete metaverse right now. Absolutely not. But you have components. We've seen some in the presentation. You can see some with Siemens. You can see them with some of our competitors. Some of these things already exist today. You can buy them. We call them digital twin. We call them simulations. All of these things in there. But many of these things exist. Not completely, not as open and integrated as we would love to have it. But today, you get a big portion of the value you can already reap. And in a few years more, you will get more value. And we'll continue down that line. But it's not something for like in 10 years. It's something that you can buy today, or in 12 months, or in 18 months.
Moving on now to the city's environment. So the city's environment is very unique. Why? Because it kind of blends these enterprise use cases with what we as analysts call consumer use cases. And it's also about our daily lives, right? And sticking to this experience area, Yusuf, I'd like to share with us, I mean, you shared it with me in our preparation call, and you got me a bit, oh, this is happening, oh, this is actually possible. So is it possible that you share also with the panel and the audience some of these fundamentally different experiences?
Absolutely. So I would want to encourage everyone to go to discoverneom.com and understand what we're doing, because it's truly pushing the envelope globally. Secondly, we have a stand just behind this. Autonomous is the name of the company, so you can come and see the solutions. So let me tell you what we're excited about doing. So as a technology, a digital and tech arm, we drive what we call the cognitive enterprise agenda. And what we do there is we are a movement of people, of minds, of engineers, designers, and really great minds from all around the world that came to innovate something within Saudi Arabia for the world. So we've innovated a bunch of amazing products and solutions and platforms that we are proud of. It's our own IP, and we're already using it within NEOM, and now we're expanding around the world in using it. Secondly, what we do in the cognitive space is we build a stack of capabilities. So we developed a lot of data solutions. So from a data mesh federated solution that we call NEOS, which is a smart city operating system, to what we call the computer vision cognitive lens, or what we call the Axis, the Metaverse platform that enables multiple organizations to collaborate into one central platform and then publish into multiple worlds, which is not today very easy. Also using the digital identity and the payment gateway and the ERP software that exists today without having to change that. That's something we think we broke the code on. Or our digital twin platform that has been used to imagine NEOM before NEOM, that has been used, if you've seen the launch of the line, the very ambitious Mirror project, 170 kilometers, 500 meters high, 200 meters wide. If you saw the launch video of that, we have launched that with the help of our software that managed to simulate the neighborhood transfer within 5 minutes. So what we've used all of those technologies and many more in terms of NLP, Arabic generative language models, and so on, are technologies generated within Saudi Arabia that are being used within Saudi Arabia, within NEOM, and for the world. Now, in terms of experience, we are really passionate about the experience. So everything we do as a city has to revolve around the humans. So we're a very human-centric technology company that puts human in the center, and we create multiple personas and avatars, and we revolve the experience around it. We animate it. So whether we're developing the line cognitive master plan to imagine what's going to happen, what's the life of the people living on the line in 2030 and beyond, whether it's about imagining the life of people living in the newly announced Sindala Island being launched in 2024, which is a touristic destination, whether it's imagining, designing, and building and collaborating in imagining Trojena, which is the ski resort mountain part of NEOM that will open, and we are very proud to have won the Winter Olympic 2029, believe it or not, is going to be held in Saudi Arabia, in the mountains of Saudi Arabia, in the mountains of NEOM. These are multiple things we've done to imagine the future. Now, the metaverse part of it is being used to imagine NEOM before NEOM. And the use cases my colleagues spoke about and the benefits are very clear, right? So you de-risk, you train, you imagine and co-design and co-innovate, you save costs, you increase efficiency. These are all benefits that are across multiple segments. We are focused within NEOM into all of the sectors. So just in case you don't know, NEOM as a city has a mobility sector, has an airline, has an airport, has a health kind of sector, media, sports, and then logistics and factories. So it's a full city that encompasses many smaller communities and cities. And we have, as Autonomous, to build all of those vertical solutions and build them on the metaverse. So we're focused on 8 verticals. One of them is manufacturing. And within manufacturing, we're actually delivering metaverse for manufacturing, driving all the ecosystem. So the worker, the employer, the investor, and the citizen.
In the futurist language, this is called the pockets of the future. But I would be also interested to understand how do we get this more widely available and whether it makes sense to have it more widely available. So let's touch on the next steps. So Gerhard, in your industry, maybe in the connectivity, in the mobile ecosystem, since we are today at Mobile World Congress, what is it that you would like to see so that we get closer to the metaverse, industrial metaverse vision?
So for me, first of all, I think that there's 3 big steps we still need to take so that we get from what we have today to what I think is the metaverse. Point number 1, we really have to open up our solutions because the metaverse will not be provided by any single company. It's impossible, and nobody would want that either. We have to have an open ecosystem of players. This means we have to open up our solutions, we have to invite innovation to play in there. Not one player can provide that. Whichever company that is, cannot be done. That's why we are in Siemens Xcelerator exactly now opening up our complete portfolio, because we know the future will be open. It will not be any more closed systems. It cannot be. Should have been done already years ago, but we're doing it now. The second
and you have partnerships like Nvidia.
We have partnerships with Nvidia, but also with many SMEs. Innovation happens at every scale. The good thing about the digital world is innovation happens in small groups, can happen in big companies, but you have to combine that. So that's the one big thing. The second big thing is really collaboration. You mentioned the example with all the different things. So that the city works together. It doesn't help if transport works.
Absolutely.
And electricity doesn't. So you have to bring all the experts together.
It can't work any other way.
Exactly. So you have to bring them together. They all talk about the same single pane of glass and same truths. What is really happening there? And on the collaboration side, I think we still have a good way to go. We have collaboration means today, but they can be a lot better. And the third thing is for me really so that the metaverse becomes really tangible. Today we almost link the physical and the virtual world. And everything is directly linked. I believe there will be purely digital virtual assets, companies that focus on only optimization in the metaverse that later on are applied to the reality outside there. So there needs to be a separation of innovation in the physical and the virtual world. And then for that, we need to have ownerships and trading rights and all the whole thing we can talk about. But I think these are still steps to go ahead. But for me, if I have one wish, it's openness, open ecosystem. Because this is the make or break. If we don't open up, nobody wants 15 metaverses by 15 companies. No.
And it's, if you allow me, it's this layer that comes, I mean, we see an evolution for the metaverse from where it is today to the spatial computing, if you wish, whereby there is absolutely a need for the industry to come together to have this metaverse operating system. What I mentioned about Access, our platform that we've done, it's an early baby steps into trying to allow everybody to collaborate in one space and then publish into multiple worlds and still reserve your IP and still work from a common data and digital twin layer. It's still early baby steps, but if the industry doesn't come to terms with that, we could not do any innovation at a big scale because everyone wants to monetize on their own world. And those different worlds, if they don't talk to each other out of the box as a feature, as a capability, this will remain silos effort.
Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I'd really like for you, Jakob, to share his thoughts about next steps and how to get to the vision.
I think next steps are all about supporting that collaboration that my two colleagues also alluded upon. So, but collaboration never goes without connectivity. So I think the collaboration between the three of us, so as we are sitting here, is also how can an operator support it and bring it all together. And if we do that, then with these small and medium enterprises, with these small steps, etc., we can really make something happening tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, etc. And let's make these baby steps. Let's make that connection between the virtual world and the real world in the collaboration between all the different parties. Then we can break the success.
We always say virtualize the physical and realize. So virtualize the physical and realize the virtual. So they have to be together.
And also for us to keep getting inspired about our jobs. I'd like to thank you very much. Thanks everyone for being with us.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap up for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Christina and all our panelists and our speakers earlier in this session today. It's been really insightful, so thank you so much.
Picture.